Hey there, Captains. It's Reem again with another episode of Think GAR It's Friday. We're going to continue on with ship reviews, this time moving up to medium ships. I am doing some tournament prep for the Battle of Hoth and in-person tournament this weekend. And doing all that preparation, it caused me to look at this medium size ship for the Republic again. It is the Victory 1. So that's what we're going to cover today. The Victory 1 came out in Rapid Reinforcements 1 for print and play. So you just print off the card and you can use that wonderful Empire model for the Republic. So let's go through the card here. It comes with 8 hull, blue flak, so decent range, but not particularly effective, 3 command, 3 squadron, 4 engineering. So very good squadron values and pretty solid engineering values here. For defense tokens, it comes with a brace, a redirect, and a salvo. So only one redirect where the Empire has 2. The salvo is really nice for the double red dice out the rear. So you got that nice long range salvo like a Munificent. We also have 3 shields on both sides, 3 shields on the front, 1 on the rear. The front arc is quite prickly with the double red and double black. The sides are both 2 red and a black, and then that rear, as we mentioned, was the double red. Thing that holds it back a bit, or the most, is probably its nav chart. It's locked at speed 2, and it's only got a click at 1 at speed 1. If you're going speed 2, you only get 1 click there at that second click there, or second range, speed 2. So not the most maneuverable of ships, and also limited by speed. So hard to get on target as just a base hull. You got to kind of add stuff to make that work. Speaking of adding stuff, we'll go through the slots here. We have 2 ordnance slots, which is pretty interesting. We have an offensive retrofit, support team, a weapons team, and an officer slot. So I ran this quite a bit when it first came out with like Tarkin. A lot of people were running like multiple victories with SPHA-Ts, because since this is a Star Destroyer, you can put a SPHA-T in the ordnance or in the offensive retrofit. And I would agree that is a way to make these quite punch above their weight, especially if you can use that side arc to get the SPHA-T shot off and still have the front arc and arc of something to shoot. Very effective. However, I feel like a lot of people used it with Tarkin, and Tarkin doesn't really help fix the nav problems that you have here. And also it doesn't really help take advantage of that engineering value unless you are naturally queuing engineering. So on most of the ships so far, I haven't recommended an Admiral too strongly at all, really. But I would say in my testing, I think you probably want Bail, or you'll have best results with Bail Organa with a victory. It allows you to navigate when you need to, which I'll touch on why that's important here in a second. And also, it really takes advantage of that 4 engineering value to just grab a dial, get a couple shields, increase the survivability, because it doesn't have a defensive retro slot. There's no thermals or ECMs you can put on this ship. So just making sure you keep those shields up, keep it surviving, to get your stat keep going off. There's other ways that GAR can get concentrate fire tokens, and I don't think that victories need to be taken in mass. But let's go through a single victory build here, or a couple different options I'd point out with a victory that you can do here. So for officers, we have a couple of quite viable options here. Right now, I would probably consider the strongest officer for the victory as Adigalia. It really helps with your defensibility, and the fact that you do have these nice shields on the side. So if they accuracy your redirect, you can use Adigalia to get extra redirects in. It especially makes the victory much more tankier to squad attacks. As like one attack, you can spend the salvo, and you can use that as a redirect because Adigalia allows you to kind of shift shields around. It's basically a free redirect. Although if you use the redirect token, you can't go to like three different hull zones. You're still just locked to being able to shift it to the side that was shot in an adjacent side. But definitely helps with survivability once you take advantage of those shields. Other options that we have for officers, and also she's very cheap at 3 points. Other options that I would recommend: Clone Captain Zack. If you're getting those SPHA-Ts out the side, it's a good way to add, just one more blue or black dice. Get that much more firepower out of it, especially if you're con firing. Excellent. Clone Captain Silver would not recommend too strongly. Generally, I think you need to be a ship that can at least go speed 3 to really utilize Silver. Clone Navigation Officer, also an option if you need need to give yourself concentrate fire tokens to power the SPHA-T again. Also a solid option. Intel Officer, if you're using SPHA-T, can always be quite good. Expert Shield Tech could be an option as well if you're running Luminara. Number of quite good officers here. I would just say my top standouts for the ship are probably Adigalia, Clone Captain Zack, and Clone Navigation Officer. They have really good synergies, helps it do what it wants to do. Moving into the next slot, there's a couple interesting choices here. I'd say the main one that I strongly recommend is the Engine Techs. It helps fix your navigation problem. You can go speed. This is why I recommended Bale earlier. If you're going speed 1, you can grab that nav dial from Bale. It helps get you that extra yaw in your native movement. And then you can also then do the Engine Techs. So you can do a pseudo speed 3 maneuver and still have essentially 3 clicks of yaw. One from both the natural move of the engine tech, one from the natural ship movement, and then one from that dial. Can really make him kind of zip around. Other options: Projection Expert, that for engineering, but basically makes him a very expensive Pelta. So I won't heavily recommend that, but you can do it. Auxiliary Shield Teams is alright, helps make them a bit beefier. And the other option, other archetype, I've kind of mentioned the SPHA-T already for the Venator, or Victory. But the other option here is this Fighter Coordination Team. As you'll note, it does have 3 squadrons. It does have an offensive retro, so you can, we'll expand on this more, but you can take expanded hangars. And if you do that, you can get Squad 4 and you can get Fighter Coordination Team. So you can push 4 squads with Fighter Coordination Team. And this can become a delivery method for ARC 170 squadrons. Those 7 hull, 2 blue bomber squads that are limited to speed 2. Fighter Coordination Team is often used to help get those into the fight. So having one ship that can push 4 is quite powerful. So that you could also theoretically do. And if you don't like any of those options and you just want to spend a point on it, Medical Team, it's a decent pickup for a point since you don't have a contain. It might make your opponent consider not even resolving a critical effect against you. NAF Team is also possible. I'd say all of these probably have a use case except for Engineering Team. You don't generally need 5 engineering points. So definitely some options here. Next we go to the weapons teams here. Number of options here. Clone Gunners is a bit clunky to use, and at some point we'll have to just talk about that card at length, but you can use it with victories, with SPHA-Ts. It could be useful with those, with its front arc, getting that guaranteed blue accuracy in there, since you only have red dice and black dice, could be quite powerful. Flight controllers, if you're pushing arcs, sure. Local fire controls are no ordnance experts. You have a lot of black dice on the ship, if you're getting a way to have 2 black dice with your SPHA attacks regularly, Ornance Experts can be especially good for that. Veteran Gunners, solid. Ruthless Strategist, Sensor Team, Weapons Battery Tech, these all have a use. Right now, I'm currently trying to go, we'll talk more in the Ordnance slots, but I am trying to go for a black crit, so I am using Ordnance Experts here, just to try and help guarantee that black crit. Also, not to underestimate Boarding Troopers, it does have Squadron 3. If you get this in there, Boarding Troopers for 3 is quite powerful. So, also an option if you want to fill 2 slots for a pretty cheap price. We'll go to this offensive retrofit. Number of solid options here. SPHA-T, probably the most popular, probably most highly recommended. That's why I think the Victory really would excel at SPHA-Ting. If you were going to use it for squads, like pushing, expanded hangar bay to get squad 4, boosted comms, hyperspace rings, if you want to mess around with that, and just have like a fun casual list. Reserve hangar decks, proximity mines, you get 2. A lot of good options in here, kind of just build, or, take as needed. Of course, there's some that you just shouldn't take, like disposable capacitors. You don't have any blue dice, so avoid that. This is not a Victory 2 from the Empire, this is a Victory 1. We'll go over to Ordnance, and this is where you can really make it shine because it has the 2 slots. Basically, pick out your favorites here. Ordnance Pods, I think, is a strong contender for one of the slots because most people know that Victories are fairly weak, or in my experience, they're fairly weak to bombing if you don't have squad or a heavy squad cover for yourself. You can really punch through a Victory since they don't have any contains. They're susceptible to like bombers once they punch through shields. This helps chip away at them a bit, maybe make them think twice about attacking you. Especially if you have Ordnance Experts, you get a free reroll on all these, so it's a pretty high likely chance of getting that 1 dice on the flak here. Also, I'm running Assault Proton Torpedoes. So I'm trying to get those black crits at long with the SPHA-T token. If you prefer, you can do the Assault Concussion Missiles. External racks is also an option. I honestly debated about running Ordnance or external racks over Ordnance Pods. There's probably a case to do so. But right now I am preferring the Ordnance Pods. That might change over time. So, just as an example then of that build that I am currently looking at doing, we have the Engine Techs Adigalia, we have the Ordnance Experts, we have the SPHA-T, we have the Ordnance Pods, and you have the Assault Proton Torpedoes. Comes at 104 points. That's getting pretty expensive. It's going to be kind of painful if you lose this, but if you can, it really helps fix the nav issues. It can take advantage of the Bale engineering dials. You can run Confire dials in order to get those 2 blacks at long with the SPHA-T. It can make it quite punchy. Also, if you get that double arc at close, it can really make it hit hard. Having a lot of fun testing it out. We'll see if it sticks around in the fleet. Basically serves a role of like a Venator 1 with SPHA-T, kind of same playstyle, just a little bit less hull. You can't take like the Tranquility title on it. But it also comes in a little bit cheaper. So if you haven't thought about the Victory 1 for like a SPHA-T role, I recommend trying at least 1. I think a lot of people tried like spamming 2 or 3 of these and didn't have a lot of success. I think you need to have them pretty purpose-built. I think Adigalia actually helps a lot with the tankiness. I know a lot of people have issues with these kind of melting. That little bit of extra tankiness might be what is pushing it over the edge for making it somewhat usable for me. And just as an example, we will build a version of the squad pusher. So you'd probably go something like this is what I would recommend, and we'll grab. I mean, for an officer, you could really even do this. So this victory, you could be pushing for 93 points. You can be pushing 4 squads. You have a Sokotana officer, so these arcs have snipe, so even if they're not in range, they get that extra shooting distance. You're shuffling them around. You got Ruthless in there to really take advantage of that blue flak. So even if you miss with the blue flak, you can do the guaranteed damage. You have these 7 hull squads. So taking 1 damage off to put like a damage on an ace definitely could be valuable. So these are the main 2 contenders of builds I would take, or like close builds. This is probably like the core with, some preference in some of the slots. The absolute core is probably this for the SPHA-T. You definitely need the engine text, I think. And the rest is kind of to your flavor. And then if you want to push arcs, you would do this. And you could do other squads, but I would argue that other ships in the Republic do other squads better. The victory niche is that it can get the fighter coordination teams and push 4 squads. So that's what kind of sets it apart and makes it possible for the arcs, but otherwise not the greatest carrier that the Republic has to field. If there's another version of the victory that people run, let me know in the comments, or if there's any success people have had with other admirals besides like Bale or Tarkin with victories. That'd be pretty cool to find out. But until next week, you all take care.